Hi, Kamiko. You're on your way home?
Yes, miss. Good evening.
Good evening. I hope the others join soon because I can't stay till 7. So I'm hoping that they
All
will join
right.
soon.
I'll shoot a message in the group.
All right, thanks. Denise, where's Lori?
Miss, I'm not sure.
Have you guys been in touch?
Barely.
Can you send me her phone number via email, please?
Sure, Miss.
Okay. Good evening again, everyone. Kumiko, where's Shantae?
Not getting through to her.
All right, now, as I said earlier, I have to get started because I have to leave at around 6:20, 6:30 this evening for an appointment. Now, first thing on the agenda for me is, well, let me apologize about last week, Wednesday. I was at a conference and things ran late and I forgot to send you all a message, although I'm sure you didn't mind not having class. But typically I would have communicated ahead of time, right? No, I have been sending you a barrage of messages regarding your submissions, and I hope you have seen them. I see some people who have been responding because, guys, it is past crunch time now. If you want to finish this course within this semester, then we need to get cracking, and the response is taking too long for some of you, right? So for instance, Kumiko and Shantae, I would have seen today where you sent me the 3 documents. But I know what you need in terms of the IRB submission. You need the application form, you need the informed consent, and you need the interview questions. So typically in terms of the submission, what happens is that you would submit all 3 of them at once, right? So I would have responded to Kumiko and Shantae in terms of their IRB application form. I think I saw your informed consent, which just needed 1 more correction, and I think your questions were okay, so you should be good to go. Shanice and Lori. Shanice, I got the IRB application. Did you send it back to me? Since yesterday?
Yes, miss. I sent them back last night.
All right, so I'm going to take, I think I just looked at your questions and they were fine. So I have to look at the application form. Romario, I think I sent you back some corrections to make. I haven't seen you send me back those. Did you get the informed consent?
Yes, miss, I'm going to do the form now because I just got home. Miss, I haven't seen any corrections on my IBA form, that's why I didn't.
Did you
resend
download
it.
it?
Yes, miss, I did.
Are you not seeing? Let me look at
No,
what
I'm
I
not
am
seeing
seeing.
the,
You know, you saw a comment from me that you were to check the comments.
miss, I go on the comments bar, but it's telling me I can't view the comments until my grades are released. That's what I'm seeing in the comment section.
What about your interview questions? What did I tell you last class? Did I say you were good to go or did I make any corrections and you were to
You made
send
a
those
few-
back to me?
You made a few corrections. I've adjusted those as well.
Huh?
You made a few corrections for the questions,
Right?
and I adjusted those. So I just need to email it back to you along with the consent form.
So what you waiting on, Romario?
Miss, I just got to my forms at work today, so I didn't get to send it off.
Okay. Yes, I have some comments on your last submission here, so I'm going to download it and send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Kenisha,
Yes, miss.
I don't see anything from you, miss.
Miss, I uploaded the two question, the two pick sheet that I have for the interview question
When that
and
was
the
that
IRBQ and
uploaded?
Canvas on Friday.
But I've
Miss,
been
in the
checking
same
since
time that you sent the message to us on Friday, miss.
I look and I don't see it. I'm gonna look again now. Hold a second.
Miss, cause remember you had tell me that I should do two different, one for
What you saying now, Kenisha, that you uploaded something?
Miss, I uploaded two sheets with two sets of questions. Cause remember you had said that I should do two sets of interview questions, and I uploaded the IRBQ
All right,
as
so
well.
what I'm seeing here, I sent the my comments on the IRB application form.
Miss, but I didn't get that.
You don't see the comments? And I
No, miss.
also sent comments on your interview protocols as well. So let me download those, and I don't know why you all aren't seeing the comments, but they're there on the
Miss, and
documents.
Miss, when I checked it back, I think about yesterday, I didn't see any comments. Like you were just showing me that there was a comment, but it's not actually showing the comment.
All right, so I'm gonna download those and send it to you now. Hold a second.
Okay, miss.
All right, I'm gonna send that to you now. So you can see the comments. I'm not sure why you all are not seeing these comments, but they're there. All right, Kenisha, yours has been sent to you, right? So really and truly, guys, the next thing that I want to do with you is to show you, once you've collected the data, how to analyze the data. No, I want to go through that with you, but I need you to get these submissions out of the way, because you can't collect data unless you submit it and you get the approval and the go ahead to collect the data, right? So it's very important that you just hunker down, look at the questions that I sent you. Sometimes you all are sending me back things with the information that I tell you to change. That don't make no sense. That's wasting both your time and mine. So when I give you comments, you need to incorporate those revisions in what I send to you. We're going back and forth too much with these documents now, right? So I have Shanice's pro application to look at, and I'm just gonna do a once over with Kamiko. I'm gonna put you in breakout rooms. I want you to look at the comments that I've made and ask any questions that you may have on that, so that we can, tomorrow, I can have an activity with you in terms of the data analysis. Because what you're going to be spending the next couple of weeks doing is to reach out to these participants, collect the data, transcribe the interviews, and then move on to analysis and writing up your findings. So it's very important that you get these documents in so that I can submit them and you can get the approval to go ahead with what you're doing. But all three of them need to be submitted at the same time. Anybody have any questions before I put you in the breakout rooms? Is everybody still on the way home?
Yes, miss.
Okay, Shanice is on our way. Kamiko is on our way. Kenisha, you're on your way. Kenisha?
Yes, miss, I'm actually at the bus stop.
And Romario, what about you?
Yes, I'm home.
You're home. Okay, so that means that Shanice and Kamiko can look at their. Kenisha, you can't look at your document now because you're on the way home.
Yes, miss.
So what I'm going to do then is to I'm just gonna go over the initial thing in terms of thematic analysis, which is your data analysis method. And then we'll use the first half of the class tomorrow to do the consultation regarding any questions you have. Now, if you can go through these documents that I've sent you and make the changes and send it back to me, outside of Shanice and Kamiko, because I'll just look at yours. But Romario and Kenisha, make those changes, incorporate them, and send back the documents to me. Kenisha, did you see the informed consent that I emailed?
Yes, miss, I saw it.
Okay, so just insert. It's not much information you have to change on that document. It's very simple. Put in the information that's requested, send your interview questions, which I would have given you comments on in addition to the application form. Same thing for you, Romario. Shanice, I don't think I saw your informed consent. Did you send it?
No, miss. I'm gonna do it when I get home.
Okay, that one is very simple, right? All right, so let me just move to this then. And tomorrow, I'm going to use the first half of the class, as I said. No, I really would have preferred, I need to speak to Laurie. Shanice, please remember to send me her contact info. I really
Yes,
would
miss.
prefer if all of you are in the class when I'm doing this, because it is critical for you to be able to know. All right, so you all are doing qualitative research, and therefore you're going to be doing qualitative data analysis. And the analysis method that you'll be utilizing is called thematic analysis. In some literature, you might see it referred to as generic thematic analysis, okay? Now, when you were doing literature in high school, I'm sure everybody did literature up to at least third form, correct? English literature,
Yes,
English
miss.
B,
Yes,
right?
miss.
Okay. Everybody did it up to at least third form, and up to at least third form, you would have learned how to identify themes in the book or in whatever it is you were reading, right? Can anybody explain to me what's a theme? When you're reading a book or something and it talks about a theme, what's the theme?
The main sequence of the information.
All right, so you're looking at a sequence. All right, anybody else want to add? What's a theme? When you
It's
think
the
about a
main
theme,
focus.
the main focus. All right, Shanice, Romario, anything to add?
A theme can sometimes be like the location of the story.
That's your setting.
That is okay.
All right. Your theme when you're reading a story is more like the recurring idea that you see flowing throughout, showing itself in terms of the message that's coming across. So for instance, if somebody tells you, for instance, like a story about you know, Jamaican culture, they give you a context or a narrative, and they say to you, what is the message that you see coming out? What is that recurring idea that you see coming out in this story? What do you think, you know, the storyteller is trying to bring across to you? That is where you're talking about your theme. And it's a similar thing that you're doing when you're doing qualitative data analysis, because it would be important for you, you have to ultimately, what you want to work towards is identifying the theme that is running throughout your interviews, right? So you first have to do this on an individual level with the interview you do, each interview, and then you're going to look at the theme across the interviews that you would have done. So if you're doing interviews with 6 participants, you have to look at the themes coming in participants A interview, B, C, D, E, F, and then ultimately you're going to look at the themes running across all 6 participants interview. So what is thematic analysis? Essentially, according to Braun and Clark, it is where you're looking for patterns that may be occurring in your data. And what is a pattern? A pattern is something that essentially, when you think about a pattern, it's something that is recurring. right? It's a trend if you want to think about it as a trend, right? What is that? What do you see happening over and over again within your data? What is your data? Your data is whatever it is your participants have said to you. So when you're doing your interviews, your one-on-one interviews, and you've transcribed them, what your participants have related to you is your data that you're going to analyze. So essentially, you're going to transcribe your interviews word for word or verbatim, and what they've related to you is going to be what you're referring to as your data. So when you're talking about your findings and you want to reference what your participants have shared with you, you're going to say, well, the data showed this, or what I saw coming out in the data was, right? So you're looking at what is salient. You would have asked research questions, and what you're looking for are those patterns. What are those reoccurring things that you're seeing coming out related to the research questions that you would have asked? So what do you need to do when you're conducting thematic analysis? Okay, there are several steps in the process. You have to become familiar with your data, right? What did I just say to your data is? Somebody remind me, what is your data? What did I just say your data was?
The information that is coming out across the questions.
Yes. So your data is whatever it is your participants have shared with you based on the questions you've asked them. Now, you're going to be able to become familiar with your data at multiple levels. One, your participants are going to be talking with you. They're going to be sharing your experiences. A lot of you, when I read your application, your IRB application, and you're describing qualitative research, you've explained to me that qualitative research allows your participants to share their experiences with you. Other literature will refer to it as their lived reality with you, okay? So when you're having an interview with somebody, essentially, you are learning from them about their experience. It's a conversation that they're having with you about what their experience is with whatever it is you're studying, right? So for Kamiko and Shante, they'll be talking to the craft vendors about their experience with harassment. For Romario, he's going to be talking to his participants about their experience as bartenders with mental health wellness. For Shanice and Laurie, they're going to be talking to the party promoters about their experience as party promoters during the COVID-19 pandemic. And for Kenisha, she'll be talking to the fishermen or women and the people at the ministry about their experiences with overfishing. So in having those dialogue now with your participants, the people who you have sampled to participate in your research, you're going to become familiar with the data or what they have shared with you, firstly, when you do the interviews with them, right? Because Romario is going to think to himself, well, this is what John, one of his interviewees, this is what John shared with me when I asked this question. And this was John's experience, which is different from Kelly's experience. And he recalls what Kelly shared with him about a particular question she asked. So you're actually going to know, you'll realize when you do these interviews, you're going to remember what your participants have said to you. So that first point of doing the interview is the first point of becoming familiar with the data. But the familiarity doesn't stop there, because then when you transcribe it, and if you recall, one of the things that they say to you about studying, you know, one of the recommendations when you're in a class is that you take notes during class. Why? Because the process of taking notes and writing down what you hear helps you to connect and to become familiar with what you've heard. Okay, so even if you're in a class like this, the recommendation is that you take notes of what you're hearing in the class, and that helps you to remember what you've heard. And then once you go home, you read over what you did in class, because that helps you to recall what was shared with you. The process of transcribing the interviews, right, which means typing out what your participants have said verbatim, helps you to also become familiar with what they've shared, become familiar with the data, right? And then reading it over now to pick up on any errors in terms of, you know, you want to make sure that what you've transcribed is actually what they've said. That also helps you to become familiar with the data. So ultimately, there are several things that you're going to do that will help you to become familiar with what the participants have shared with you. Now, the second step is where you're going to do what's called coding the data. And coding the data, when you're coding the data, you're actually looking at the research questions that you're asking, and you're picking up on key phrases or words, either within what they've said to you to describe what they've said, or you can come up with a word on your own to describe what the participants have said to you. So if, say, for instance, the participant spoke about, you know, maybe a participant said to you that, boy, you know, I feel demotivated in the craft market when I see other craft vendors troubling the tourists and forcing them to make purchases. You look at that comment that they've made, and maybe one of the codes you pick out is demotivation, right? Because that is coming across from what they've said, or demotivation of craft vendors, okay? Or you can pick out troubling tourists, and that will help you to remember a code that was coming out of what a participant would have said. So when you're coding the data, what you're looking at, what are the key messages? Can you come up with a word or a phrase to describe different things coming out in what the participants would have shared with you? Because remember, you're going to transcribe the interview now, and you're going to have that those transcriptions of what they would have said, and you're going to, on one side of the page, identify the different messages coming out in what they've shared with you, right? Now, when you've coded the data, you're going to have to now organize the data according to themes. So you can have a bunch of codes that make up what you call a theme. And the next step is where you're going to review those themes, refine them, and use a word to describe them. And then you're going to write up your findings under each theme. So those are the 6 steps in thematic analysis. So how do you become familiar with your data? 1, the interview is the first thing. And after you've interviewed the person, you're going to transcribe the interview. That helps you to become familiar with the data. Next thing you're going to do is you have to read and reread your transcripts, what you have typed out in transcribing the interview. And that helps you to remember what your participants have said. It's important, and remember I said to you that during the interview, even though you're recording it on 2 different devices, I want you to have a piece of paper where you jot down things that occurred to you while the person was responding to you. Because those notes that you make during the interview are also important. Okay, in terms of things that you may pick up that the person was saying. 1 second. Right? Things that you may pick up that the person was saying during the interview. So you have to be taking notes. You're not going to be transcribing what they say while you're interviewing them, but have a piece of paper or something that you can jot down impressions that you get while you're interviewing them. Any questions so far? All right. Now, coding the data, as I said before, is where you're breaking up what they've transcribed into meaningful chunks. What does this mean? You're picking up on what the different segments, what is coming out in different segments of the interview, right? So if Romario, one of Romario's participants said to him, boy, you know, my colleagues or co-workers really helped me to have a healthy state of mind, right? One of the codes that Romario might pick up from that is that, you know, he could pick up co-workers. He could pick up importance of co-workers. He could, as a code coming out of that, what the participant said, he could say help from co-workers as a code, okay? And, or you could code it as a co-workers and healthy state of mind. So essentially your code is where you're using short phrases or even a single word to describe what is coming out of what your participants have said to you. That's what you refer to as a code, right? So what is an open code? You're thinking about your research question and you hear something in what your participant that have said that reminds you about your research question, something interesting in relation to your research question. As I said, it could be a word or it could be a phrase. And sometimes it's a word that you can pull from what they've said, or it could be a phrase that you put together to describe what they have said to you in relation to your research question. Now, the next step is where you're going to search for themes, right? And in terms of themes, you're looking, as we said before, these are your patterns. Everything, though, goes back to your RQs, your research questions. So your themes must relate to your research question. Everything you're thinking about your research questions. And that is why in everything that you do, I say write those research questions down. Know your research questions. And what I like about how you've organized your interview question is that, as I've recommended to you, the interview questions are below the different research questions that they relate to. Because ultimately what you're trying to do is to look at the association between the response that they've given you and the research question that it's related to. And in even picking out your themes and your codes, you must see that connection. That's going to help you when you're writing up your findings, right? So your theme basically is that central idea that your codes are going to fall within. Because your themes help you to come up with this pattern that relates to the research question, right? So when you've written down all of these smaller codes, you're going to organize them under broader themes. So maybe there is a theme that speaks about, for Romario, co-workers help or helpful co-workers. And then under that broader theme of helpful co-workers, Romario will list all the codes coming out of the data related to the help from co-workers, right? And Kenisha may have a code that speaks to, the dangers of overfishing. Maybe her participants spoke a lot about the dangers of overfishing, and that may be a theme, right? And then under the dangers of overfishing now, she may have several codes where people reference things related to the dangers of overfishing. So your theme is like that central idea that you see playing out across your interviews. And then your codes, you're going to pull from the different interviews and put them below those themes. And each code is going to be related to a quotation from your interviews and what your participants have said. We're going to do an activity tomorrow that is going to bring this more to light for you. Don't worry about it, so that you can see exactly what I'm saying in terms of how it relates when you have a section of an interview to analyze, right? So essentially, what you're looking at is the description of the information that you would have had in terms of the patterns coming out in your interviews, right? And you have to then ensure that by this alignment that you are coding, and then based on your codes, you're developing larger themes now that relates to those codes, and everything that you're doing must relate to what? Everything that you're doing must relate to what? I'm waiting on a response. Everything that you're doing must relate to what? What does it all go back to?
The
So research
theme
question?
is
Your research questions. Okay, everything that you do, I must see the connection. You must see the connection as a researcher to your research questions. So when you have identified all of these themes now and the codes that fall within the themes, you're going to look for the data that relates to each of these themes. Now remember, if you recall, I want each of you to go and look for a journal article that has used a qualitative thematic analysis approach. So go on the website and pull down an article that has used thematic analysis as a qualitative approach and bring that with you to class, right? So when you've identified all of these themes now, one of the things you have to do is to see where the theme relates to quotations from what your participants have said, right? And you're going to read and reread the data and make sure that you see evidence of these themes coming out of your data or what your participants have said with you. If you cannot find evidence through quotations related to these themes, it means it's not a strong enough theme. Your theme has to be supported by the evidence, and the evidence is the fact that you can see support for these themes in the different interviews that you've done. If you can only find evidence from one interview you've done, that's not a strong enough theme. It has to be something that you see recurring throughout your interviews with all your participants, or at least most of them. All right, so you have to be able to tie back the data to the research question, and the themes have to be patterns that are occurring through most, if not all, of your interviews with your participants, right? So what are you gonna ask yourself? Does this make sense as a theme, right? For instance, does it relate to my research question? Does it help me to answer my research question? Do I see it reoccurring throughout the interviews that I've done and what the participants have shared with me? If the answer is no, then it don't make sense as a theme. It don't make sense to even include it, because I must see the evidence that it makes sense, right? Now, sometimes you have a lot of concepts that you're putting together and they're falling with, you put them within one theme. And it could be 2 themes, or it could be 3 different themes. If you're trying to cram too much into one theme, then you need to break it up some more. Or if you find that you have 2 themes and they're very similar, so for instance, in looking at the interview questions, some of you drafted interview questions that were very close or seem to be asking the same thing. And I said to you, these 2 questions seem to be asking the same thing. So you need to just ask one question, one of the questions. You may find the same thing with a theme, where the themes are so close, the data that's related to it is so close that it's better that you just try and bring them together, merge them, and use the data that you have to support that one theme, right? Because you don't want duplication. That's not going to make any sense, right? Sometimes you have to think about, well, do I have sub-themes? Do I have themes that are falling within a theme, right? Maybe I need to explain that there is this larger theme and there's information that can support the theme within that, right? Do you have adequate data, as I've said to you before, to make this make sense as a theme? Or are there themes that you have not considered? So it requires quite a bit of analysis. I think I said that last thing as well. It requires quite a bit of analysis from you and really knowing your data, right? Now, some people use what you call like a visual map. There's software, I'm not sure that the software is free, but there is software that can help you to develop like a visual mapping of your themes. But these are things you can actually do in Word as well with text boxes and so on. So you'd have to go pay for any data. Some people actually print off their interviews after they've transcribed them on a piece of paper and they handwrite their data analysis. Of course, you have Word where you can use track changes to help you, so you don't have to print it off and do it that way. It's all about your preference, right? And I'm going to show you tomorrow what I mean. Everybody in here knows how to do track changes on Word, right? And so you can use the track changes in Word to help you to analyze your data. As I said, there's also software, but you don't necessarily have to go and purchase any software to assist you, because I'm not aware that any of the software is free, right? Hold on, what is happening here? Right. So some central questions you want to ask yourself. What exactly is coming out? What's the message that's coming out if you have identified a theme? What is it trying to tell you, right? What is the important message that is coming out? Do you have themes that relate to each other that you may need to discuss within a larger theme? How are the themes related? Are the themes too closely connected? And so you have to then, merge the themes or come up with a larger theme that in that where you see those patterns coming out. Those are things you have to consider. And then lastly, now, this is chapter 4. Once you've done the analysis, you're going to write your findings for your participant, for your readers. This is where you're going to tell the story now of what you discovered. So essentially, chapter 4 is where you're now going to share what your participants have said to you in response to those questions you asked. Right? So chapter 4 is going to be organized according to themes, right? And under each theme, you're going to speak to your reader now to say, this is how this theme came out. This is what the participants shared with you. This is why this research, this is what came out based on these research questions and these interview questions asked. And this validates what I've asked in terms of this question. So you have to basically relate to your readers now that this is the information that I've gathered. This is what my participants have shared with me. You have to bring up and use your quotations as support for those themes and give examples of what participants said to you related to that theme. It's almost like you're telling a story in writing your findings for your reader. This is where you get the opportunity now to really tell the story about your participants and what they've shared with you. That is important, right? And what is going to help you to do that? The quotations from your participants in their own words. Remember, I said to you a couple classes ago that if your participant speaks to you in Patois, you have to try and transcribe the Patois verbatim, right? If there's, for instance, if they use arms and so on, and you know, they might pause, that sort of thing, or even if they laugh, right? You can put in brackets laughter. But whatever your participants share with you, it's a verbatim transcription of what has been said. Okay? So your quotations are going to be very important in order to solidify and give examples of the themes or issues that you're trying to bring across to your reader. Right? So you're not just going to know, describe. It's not about description. Sometimes when you all were writing your chapter summaries, you tried to describe what the chapter was saying. No, you're developing, you're relating to your reader how this theme came about in your research and different aspects of what was said related to the research question. Right? Because basically what you're doing is you're crafting a narrative. You're narrating something. You are telling a story. You're sharing your participants' experiences. And that is going to be very important in terms of your findings for chapter 4. And this is why I'm saying to you guys that you need to get now this IRB process. We need to get it out of the way. Right? You need to submit the documents so you can get the IRB approval and move on to collecting your data, because sometimes students take it for granted and think that data collection is going to be a breeze. Oh, I'm going to find it so easy to get participants. And then you have a difficulty getting. Some people have it very easy. Some people have a challenge. Right? So you cannot take it for granted that your data collection is going to be very easy and a walkover. So we need to get this IRB process out of the way. You all need to take this thing seriously now for those who aren't taking it seriously, right? And give the work some attention. I'm sure you do not want to have this course, which you don't need to have, outstanding. And you can't graduate when you want to graduate. I'm sure nobody in here wants that. And I don't want it for you. Any questions? Everybody here with me? Show of hands. Kamika, Laurie, Shanice, I'm not seeing the hands. Are you there?
Miss, I'm here.
Okay. Shanice? Shanice, just answer me. Kamiko?
Yes, Miss.
Okay.
Oh, stepped out of Wi-Fi. I'm just home.
Okay.
I'm back in.
All right. So you have a couple things to do before tomorrow's class, and I want to see everybody in tomorrow's class. Every single one of you, right? For one, for those who have not yet submitted their documents based on the revisions that I've sent, I would like you to send those documents to me so I can look at them before tomorrow's class. Okay, so I have Shanice, what Shanice sent me, I have to look at that and get back to you before class tomorrow. Same thing for Kamiko. If the others of you, I don't see Kenisha, it look like she got bumped out, right? You need to do that and send it to me for class tomorrow. When the first half of class, when we come tomorrow, that I'm going to spend just giving you my final feedback in terms of those documents. Then we're going to move on to the activity that I mentioned. Oh, no. Second thing I want you to do is to look for a qualitative article, preferably related to your topic, right? A qualitative article where they use thematic analysis to analyze their data and show their findings. Okay, so that's the
Miss, you said
second thing.
thematic or schematic?
Thematic.
Okay.
That's what we were just discussing, Laurie. Okay, late. Thematic analysis. Okay, and then the third thing we're going to do is the activity where I want you to actually try and code some data. And I will provide you with an excerpt from a transcript and ask you to code the data. Any questions? So what are the 3 things that are going to be done tomorrow?
Work on the documents, transcribing, and something else.
I never say you're going to transcribe, Kamiko. I don't know where you get that from.
Code, miss,
Coding.
code.
Right.
Coding.
And what's the third thing that you're to do?
Be on time.
The
Other than
article
that,
journal.
that's always an expectation.
Article journal. Miss the journal.
Get the article,
Mhm.
right? Get a qualitative article where they use thematic analysis, preferably one related to your topic, and bring that with you.
Okay. All right, miss.
Okay, any questions? No, I'm not. You see, after tomorrow's class, I am not going to be dealing with IRB applications. We've spent too much time on these IRB applications. So pay attention to the comments that I have sent you. And that you must have submitted before tomorrow. So if you need to use the rest of the class to work with each other, then do so, right? To make the final submissions. But that document must be perfect by tomorrow. Clear?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Okay, because I need to submit it to the IRB committee so you can get the go-ahead to go and collect your data. The way things looking right now, you all going to be working on this thing into July, right? Because you all, I think, underestimate how much work you have ahead of you. So you're going to be working on this thing into the summer after your exam. I don't think we're going to meet the June deadline. We'll see what happens because it all depends too on your ability to get your participants to do the interviews. And you all are going into exams next month, which means that May is basically a dead month because 2 weeks out of May, you're going to be doing exams. So that means we're going into June, July. Right, so we need to get IRB approval by next week. Is there anybody that would love to do this class in the summer or semester 1?
This would be the question.
No, miss. No,
Anybody
sir.
that would love to do this class in September?
No, miss.
This would be by
Not
No,
Miss
miss.
Archie, man.
Dying to be
Yeah.
over.
Okay,
Same.
all right. Well, please show it through the attention you give it because I am not teaching it to you in September. Somebody else will have to. So if you don't want to do the course in September, please give it the attention that it demands. So we can get
Okay.
it out of the way. Because the way you all
Miss-
acting, I don't want to do it in September.
Miss,
And
I believe that they should put this course with Friedman because they take a lot of attention and it's
Yeah.
hard to juggle both of them.
Yes, but you just have to juggle, right? So we just have to do, you can make that recommendation and I hear you, but we just, usually the students, I've taught students who do this course in the summer and they have less time. So having it in semester 2 is not a bad idea, right? Well, you all need to give it some attention. Okay, so we can get it done. So please work on those things that I have given you for tomorrow, and then we'll meet tomorrow in class, and please make sure that you're on time. Okay?
Okay, miss.
All right, so
Okay,
as I
miss.
said to you, I have to sign out a bit early this evening, so I will see you in tomorrow's class.
Bye, miss.
Have a good evening. And Laurie, I'm gonna call you tomorrow so you can look out for a call from me. It will be a private number.
Okay, miss.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too, miss.
Bye.